Rabbi Zeilengold. Yeah. So he was telling us of all the answers and the kiruvim that he got from the Rebbe. So we're sitting around, and he's telling us he had this answer, and the Rebbe told him this, and the Rebbe told him that. He would write to the Rebbe, I think, every day. All the years that he was in Minnesota, every day he would write the Rebbe a report. So he's talking about all these things. He says, one time the Rebbe said to me, from now on, only good things will happen for you. Everybody around the table was impressed. Really? The Rebbe said that? From now on, only good things will happen to you? He said, yes. So out of great hispilus, we said to him, where? When did the Rebbe say that to you? He said, when I benched Goimel by the Rebbe's minyan. Everyone around the table said, oh, okay. Oh, he said it in Hebrew as part of the... that's nothing. You hear this? If he said it in English, wow. Oh, it was what you say after Goimel. Okay. Says it to everybody. Do you see what's wrong when you don't really understand? Why is it when you hear it in English, it sounds real? If it's part of the nusach, yeah. So sometimes I say something, I explain something to Bochum. They say, wow, where does it say that? I said, in Kuntus Amayin. Oh, right. Oh, okay. I just ruined it. Because when you understand it, it's exciting. When you read it in Kuntus Amayin, with the nigun, doesn't have the same effect. No, so I was just saying that understanding, if it helps to say it in English, to say it in English. But back in those days, when I was in 770, the most exciting thing that happened was the Pegisha. Pegisha im Chabad. When college students would come to New York, Crown Heights, and they would make special talks, So Rabbi Posner, Zalman Posner came to speak for them. Dr. Yitzchak Block, Shmuel Lu. They got the best speakers to inspire these college students. And back in the 50s, the college students were really students. They were serious. They had good questions. They took it seriously. Listening to these Chassidim explain Chassidus in English to these college students, that's when I decided that gotta go on Shlichus. To tell you the truth, it was not that popular. Going on Shlichus was not that popular back in 1965. There were altogether 8 or 9 shluchim in America. Maybe not even. There was Detroit, Miami. In
California,
Right chick. Okay.
Minnesota.
Massachusetts. Yeah, there's the Friedrich Rebbe shluchim. So it was not very popular. But when I saw this, it was so inspiring that first of all, I went back I said, I got to learn Chassidus. The power of it. And to be able to say it in English, it was a completely different world. Now English is normal. So we got to say it in a different language to make it serious. But that is the demand, the need of the hour. Chabad houses have already made a breakthrough. It's okay to go to a Chabad house. They're very welcoming, they're non-judgmental, there's always food. You go to a Chabad house, you put on tefillin, you go, of course, you shake a lulav and that's it again. The people are now ready to actually learn. And if we don't teach them, then they go someplace else. So for many people, they get inspired by Chabad and then they go to learn someplace else. And then they become big critics of Chabad. The solution is we gotta understand Chassidus and share it. It's life-saving.
How do you learn the Perek Tanya in a way that it comes out in English?
Right, you learn it with the English translation, which you can't understand.
I don't mean the English words. I mean, what do you mean? How does the Shliach learn the text in the first place?
In other words, how do you learn? It's a very fundamental question. How do you learn, huh?
How do you learn? You listen to you.
And what did Rebbe do?
Explains the mind.
How? Everybody explains. Everybody explains and nobody understands. But when Rebbe explains, it's different. What is that? That's the answer. What is that? Anything you learn, 5 lines in Tanya. This is related to this, and this is a higher madrega, this is a lower madrega. Wait. Before you tell me what's higher, what's lower, what is this? Ma zois. That's how you learn. You know that there are 3 levushim to the nefesh? Yeah. Machshava, dibur, ma'aseh. Right, everybody knows. Everybody knows that there are 3 levushim. A nefesh has 3 levushim. Machshava, dibur, ma'aseh. What's machshava? Thought. No, don't give me the English word. Tell me what is machshava. Machshava, when you think. When you do what? What's machshava? Does anybody know? This is how you learn. You take a word, you take the subject, and you don't ask how many there are, whether it's higher or lower. What is it? Shailas tam. Ma zois. We had these classes in the library downstairs in Tzach. So one day, the koilul that's upstairs over Tzach came downstairs to have a conversation about Chassidus. So I said, what do you want to talk about? They said, the Sviras. I said, okay, what's a Svira? They said, the 10 Sviras. I said, yeah, what's a Svira? Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. What is a Svira They all sat there. These are koilel people. They grew up with Chassidus. They know my mother by heart. What's a sikh? What's a sfira? That's where we fail. There are 10 sfiras. Come on, everybody knows that. What is a sfira? Mazois. Sit there until you know what it is. One koilel guy saw me the next day on the street. He says, by the way, I asked my mashpia what's a sfira. Nobody knows. End of subject. So when I first started learning Chassidus, our first teacher was named Bedford, was Reb David Raskin. The next class up was Reb Yoel. Reb Yoel would come to Bedford for an hour once a week, then every day. Anyway, so we were learning something, Derech Mitzvah, I think it was. And it said in the Maimer that this is the pnimius of that. I forget what it was. I'm learning it, we're learning the Maimer. I don't see how this is the pnimius of that. So I went over to Rebbe Yoel, the first conversation I ever had with Rebbe Yoel. I went over to Rebbe Yoel and said, how is this the pnimius of this? He looked at me for a minute and he said, what's meant pnimius? I thought about it for a second. I said, oh, okay, I understand. He never told me how this is the pnimius of that. He understood from my question that I don't know what it means to be pnimius. Once I understood what pnimius, oh yeah, sure, so this is the pnimius of that. So that became my learning style. What does that word mean? So there was a project, it never took off, but a couple of years ago, there was a project when they started giving out the Tanya Muvu'eres, people wanted to make a Tanya Muvu'eres in English. So the first thought was, take the Tanya Muvu'eres that's in Hebrew, translate it. But all of the people who were the Mevinim on English, they said, what the Hebrew explains, the English reading public is not interested. Don't tell me that this is the Gemara, that's not what the English, right? So we started thinking, what would be a biur for English people on the Tanya? And this became the plan. Don't bring in the Gemara Araya from another Maimer. Tell people ma zeis. You know you have a nefesh alikis and a nefesh abahamis? Sure. What's a nefesh? What's a nefesh? They are my modim, very deep, complicated my modim, on rotzen. The rotzen, where is it in the nefesh? Is it higher than Tainug? Is it lower than Tainug? The Ratzon Hashem, is it a Kadmon? It's not a Kadmon. It always was. It can't always be. It's a Nivra. It's not a Nivra. What is it? But nobody ever says, tell me what the word means. What does it mean you want? It means I want it. What does it mean? What is that? I was talking to a psychologist just now before I came. We had to hook up with a psychologist for our community. Psychology is the study and the chokhmah of getting to what the person really wants most. So there are different shittas. Freud, whatever. Each one has a shitta that what the person wants most is this. Another shitta is no. What a person wants most is that. And that's the debate. Do you want this or do you want that? Wait a minute. What does want mean? Nobody knows. So there's a whole philosophy, a whole science, and it's based on nothing. So I was talking. She was, a very open-minded psychologist. I said the debate about whether a person wants this or wants that, isn't it possible that a person doesn't want anything? Who says we want? We talked about it a little bit, and she realized no one ever told her what wanting is. They're telling her what people want. But what does it mean to want something? Mazois. It sounds like a klotzkasha. Actually, it is a klotzkasha. But the klotzkasha are the best kashas in the world. Yesterday, you didn't want. Today you want. What happened? How did it happen? What changed? What does it mean you want? What does that mean? Well, you think about something and then you want it. You're not answering the question. And by the way, what is thinking? What does it mean to think? The Rosh Hashiva in Montreal, when I was there, was Rebbe Isaac Shvei. Anybody related to the Shvei family? No? Anyway, Rebbe Isaac was an amazing individual. One of the real geniuses. He went over to a bacha who was sitting and learning Gemara. And he said to him, what are you learning? He said, whatever, the Tosfos. So Rabbi Isaac asks him a kasha on the Tosfos. So the Bacher is sitting, quiet. Rabbi Isaac says, I asked you something. The Bacher says, I'm thinking. He fell into the trap. He says, I'm thinking. He says, you're thinking of the answer? He says, yeah. He says, oh, so you know the answer? He says, no. He says, so what are you thinking? His mind exploded. If I ask you a question, think about it. What are you doing? I'm thinking. What are you thinking? I don't know. I'm thinking the question. Okay, you know the question. What's the answer? I'm thinking. So Isaac sat there with him for over an hour. What does it mean to think? It changed this guy's life.
You're recording of that?
Oh, I wish. The one thing that the guy told me afterwards, that he remembered, Isaac said to him, there's an answer to every question. Seichel is the ability to know where the answer is hiding. In other words, where are you going to look for the answer? You don't know the answer. So you can't be thinking the answer. And you can't just keep thinking the question. How's that going to get you anywhere? You're thinking, where must the answer be? Where's the gap? What piece is missing that would answer this question? That's the difference between a gleiche Kopf and a krumme Kopf. Between a person who can think clearly and a person whose thinking is too complicated. A gleiche Kopf means you know where to look. If you don't know where to look, you wander around the subject and you spin webs and you come up with these far-fetched answers that has nothing to do with the subject. Pilpul. So, let me share the story with you. You know that the Alte Rebbe was traveling and he came in the middle of a winter night. He came to Shklov and there was a difficult question being discussed a whole day among the scholars of Shklov. And when the Alte Rebbe came in, they asked the Alte Rebbe to explain it. And the Alte Rebbe just said the Gemara word for word, and there was no kasha. You familiar with the story? No? That's the story as it is popular. The big scholar, the big lamden, was Rabbi Yosef Kolbe, who was actually a chaver of the Vilna Gaon. The rest of the story behind the story, all day the people learning in this Beis Medrash were debating this question in the Gemara in Erchem. There was a guy who taught, like a shiur. He was the Magid shiur. Those were the little gedolim. He didn't know the answer to the question, so he went to a bigger Talmud Chacham who was studying by himself and asked him. The guy had a hard time giving an answer. So they went to a bigger Talmud Chacham, the hierarchy, until finally, in desperation, they disturbed Rabbi Yosef Kolbe himself to ask him to say the pshat. The Alte Rebbe walked in. This was before he was well known. He had been traveling. It was very cold outside. The Alte Rebbe walked in and went over to the oven to warm up. Rabbi Yosef Kolbe was explaining the Gemara according to his understanding, and he noticed that the Alte Rebbe was like making with his shoulders, like unimpressed. So he was shocked. Rabbi Yosef Kolbe was like, what? So he went over to the Alte Rebbe, and he said, "Von wann is a junger Mann?" Put him in his place. Junger Mann, where are you from? So the Alte Rebbe said, that's the question of Me'ayin Bosa. So Rabbi Yosef Kolbe said, don't play games with me. I have no time for this. And he quoted a lashon that is said about the Eibishter, and he applied it to himself. He said, Lav urchoyi leishtamid b'mila dehedyeta. In Zayar it says, how come the Eibishter creates a world? For the Eibishter to create the world it's degrading. Creating a world is an ordinary activity. It's not the Eibishter's way to get involved in ordinary. So he said it about himself. He said, don't give me, I don't have time for mila dehedyeta, for ordinary hedyet. So the Alte Rebbe said that in Zohar someplace it says that the Malach Matat, the highest of the Malachim, is called hedyet. So hedyet is not such a simple thing. The base of Kolbe was like a little taken aback. And he said to the Alte Rebbe, where are you coming from? Who are you? So the Alte Rebbe said that in the Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu did not know when Chatzos, right? By Makas B'Cheres, Moshe Rabbeinu said Kachatzos, because he couldn't say exactly when Chatzos was. But David HaMelech did know exactly when Chatzos was. So the Gemara says, Moshe lo yoda, Moshe didn't know, David yoda. Because David HaMelech says, Chatzos laila okum, I get up at midnight, not around midnight. So the shaila is, Moshe Rabbeinu is Chochmeh D'Atzilus. He didn't know, and David HaMelech is Malchus, the lowest, and he did know. The answer is, Malchus is bittel. Tachlis Yediyah Shalei Neida. Malchus knows everything. Yes? That was the Rebbe's answer to who he was. And then the Alte Rebbe said to him, those who think they know the pshat in the Gemara, Taka don't know. In other words, you don't know what you're talking about. This humbled Rabbi Yosef Kolbe, and Rabbi Yosef Kolbe then said to the Alte Rebbe, can you tell us pshat? So what did the Alte Rebbe do? He quoted the Gemara word for word, and then the Rashi word for word, and he translated each word. And there was no kasha. The kasha that they spent the entire day on turned out not to be a kasha at all. What is the moral of the story? If you think you know the pshat in the Gemara, then you don't know pshat in the Gemara. What does that mean? You're telling the Gemara what it means. You're probably wrong. But if you let the Gemara tell you, the Gemara knows what it means. So if the Gemara is telling you, then you know. What's the difference between you're telling the Gemara or the Gemara telling you? Bittel. So if you think you can tell the Gemara what it means, you'll never know the Gemara. You have no bittel. But when you have bittel, you let the Gemara tell you. Then you'll understand everything. So the story is not that the Alte Rebbe made a ness and everybody suddenly understood the Gemara. There was no kasha. No, it's the way the Rebbe learns. If you learn this way, you won't have a kasha. Because you're letting the Gemara speak for itself. The same is true with a Maimer. If you're going to explain the Maimer, you'll probably get it wrong. If you let the Maimer explain itself, the Maimer knows what it's talking about. So that's when Rabbi Yosef Kolbe became a chassid. Yes, and the Rebbe told it a few times. And each time that the Rebbe mentioned the story, it was important to the Rebbe to mention that when the Alte Rebbe was standing by the oven to warm up, he didn't put his hands behind his back. Behind his back. You know, sometimes you stand next to the oven with your hands. So the Rebbe said, the Alte Rebbe did not do that. Because al pi Kabbalah, you're not supposed to put your right hand behind your back. I hear a tape of Rebbe Yoel teaching Samach Vov. And the Bachrim are asking, and one Bachar says, Rebbe Yoel, in simple language, what does it mean? And Rebbe Yoel loses his patience. And he says, in simple language. Why does everything have to be simple? Try a little harder. Strain a little. Use your brain. Everything should be bite size. What is it called? Sound bites. Try a little bit. No, it's unfortunately there's no.
You don't know what the Muslim means, you just know what trying. I mean,
What does try mean?
no, I mean, if you
Mazos.
one in the Maimer, it's no, you can't harm it. You have to know what this Muslim means.
Like what?
Alos man ban or something.
Yes.
You can't harm it in the Maimer.
Why?
You have to open a different I don't know.
Well,
Open this,
you need a dictionary.
there should be a dictionary. But it's
Yes. Yeah, that should be. That should be.
not. You're going to alter it one day. Maybe not.
So they were learning some Maimer, and in the Maimer it said that this whatever, that reaches into Radlo. And a Bacher said, that's it. Blum.
That's who was around love.
People were translating a letter, and in the letter, in parentheses, it said Ches Kuf. So the guy translating the letter wrote Chatzi Kaddish. What's Ches Kuf? No, it was Choser Ktsas. There are a few words missing here. Chatzi Kaddish. Anyway, so the word Radlo showed up, and the Bacher said, okay, that's already, Radlo, what the heck is it? That's it, I'm finished. Biel says, calm down. Radlo means Reisha de lo Yisyada. The Reisha, the beginning that is not known. No, Reisha is Chachma. Reisha is Chachma. Chachma, before you get to know it, there's a madrege of Chachma before you know it. That's Radlo. Don't freak out. Yeah, so he said the language scares you. particularly the Rosh Hashanah.
There's a new book on Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
Chassidus Rosh Hashanah. Aleph has like a whole page.
It can mean so many different, right? Yeah. But there is nothing in Chassidus, there's nothing in Torah that you can't understand. Like somebody said, you know what's going to happen after Tchias HaMesim? It's going to be so amazing. So what's going to be? Oh, we don't know. I said, but it's going to be amazing. Yeah, amazing. I said, you're out of your mind. You're excited about something and you have no idea what it is. You're a baby. If you don't know what it is, then don't talk about it. You're very excited about something and you have no idea what it is. You're losing your mind. We don't talk about things we don't know anything about. So anything that's in Torah, we know something about it. When you say, for example, oh, that's l'mayla min haseichel. So you don't know what it is anymore? You have no idea what's l'mayla min haseichel? Of course you do. Rotzen. Rotzen is l'mayla min haseichel. We have no idea what the Eibishter's Rotzen is. That's true. But you're talking about Rotzen. You're talking about something you don't know. What's going to be after Tchias HaMesim? After everything. It's going to be a whole new... What's going to be? Nobody knows. Then shut up. Don't get excited about something that you have no idea what it is. What's going to be after Tchias HaMesim? We will get to know the Eibishter, who is the Baal HaTainug. What, you don't know what that is? Well, I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what it feels like. But what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Eibishter has a Tainug. He is the Baal HaTainug. So Nesava HaKadosh Baruch Hu liyes le'dira b'tachteinim. What's going to happen when he has a dira b'tachteinim? Then the taiva will be fulfilled. And then we will get to know the Baal HaTaiva. And that is awesome. Unimaginable. But we know what we're talking about. One more thing. We devote our lives, literally, every Chabad Chassid devotes his life to making a dira b'tachteinim. What is a dira b'tachteinim? Huh? A dwelling place, yes. And what is a dwelling place? A place where you can be yourself. So the Eibishter needs a place where he can be himself. Okay.
Known as a house.
Uh-huh.
Dwelling place, also known as a house.
His main dwelling place. So here's the picture. The Eibishter wants a dwelling place b'tachteinim. He hires Yidden, gives them a Torah, and says, this is how you can make for me a dira b'tachteinim. And when you make me a dira b'tachteinim, I will reward you handsomely. Yeah, that's the picture. Schar. So here's the picture. The Eibishter wants a place of his own. So we will make him a place of his own. He will live there, and we will go someplace else. But he'll pay us very nicely. If that's your picture of Dira B'Tachtenim, a place where a person lives alone is not a Dira. It's not a Dira. A person alone doesn't need a Dira. If you're single, you can sleep in a dormitory. Why do you need a Dira? A Dira B'Tachtenim doesn't mean build me a place and then get lost. Chas v'shalom. A Dira means I want to live with you. That's a Dira. Not I want to live separate from you and you're my contractor, so finish the job and get out of here. That's not a Dira, that's not a Tachlis, that's not a Taiva. The Nesava HaKadosh Baruch Hu means that he wants to become Echad. He wants to become one with us. For that, you need a Dira. So actually, we are the Dira. The Dira is not made out of 2x4s. We are the Dira. I was saying this to some people, and they said, wow, I never thought of that. I said, it's a pasuk in Chumash. V'asu li migdash, v'shachanti, not in the migdash, in you. Oh, okay. Ruined it. It's a pasuk. We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in. It's informal, it's questions and answers, it's conversation. It's really relaxed, it's really pleasant, enjoyable, informative, and kind of community-like. It's a Sunday night program. There's a Wednesday morning program for the VIPs, and there's a Wednesday night program. All of it just conversation, casual, laid back, unscripted. So join us, take a look, click the link below and see which of the three suits you best, and join us for some enjoyable conversation.